everyone. It's so good to see you all. You know the rules. Um, I will send the chat to Marnie after the call, and so she will be privy to anything if you want to send her a message. But during the call, she's been strictly forbidden to look at the chat. And please don't ask any boring questions. I will accept any quirky questions, any weird questions. The weirder, the better. But nothing we can find on Google that's like professional and appropriate. That's my new least favorite word, appropriate. If I can be anything in the world, my whole goal in life is to be inappropriate. So we have got Marnie Penning here, and I have a couple of questions for you. Let me just make sure we're recording because I don't see it. Okay. So you're one of those people that caught my eye on social media, but you posted something that you'd done, like a little acting reel kind of thing. And you know when you know that all your friends are really good, right? And then they post something, you go, "Oh my God, she's really good." And I want to hear about 10-year-old Marnie.
Oh yeah.
What was she
10-year-old
like?
10-year-old Marnie was I was an instigator in the neighborhood for all of us to put on a show. I started I started doing theater when I was 8 years old. And actually my I did I remember this. I did a skit for the PTA when I was like in first grade. So I remember the only thing I remember is that I wrote it, and the end was me in the splits going something about "Yay, Claremont" or something, because that was my elementary school.
But that talk about
Um,
massive networking. That's very young to start networking. Like, let's hit the people in the right places there.
that's right. They had all the power, was the
Yeah.
PGA. So yeah, so that's, and then I have three sisters, and so we have a built-in, theater company. And I have 16 first cousins on one side of my family. So we would all get together and we would write these little plays and make everybody, all the adults, sit down. My dad has five brothers and two sisters, and my mom has five brothers. And we would sit everybody down, and all of our aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody, and make them watch our shows. And I barely remember what they were about. I just remember there was one, my baby sister Anna, who's 8.5 years younger than I am. We made her say "my man" at one point, like wearing this big Southern belle hat. I don't remember what the play was about. So I started doing children's theater at a company called Children's Theater of Arlington, which is now Encore Stage and Studio. And I started with them when I was 9.
Wait,
So
question. Where
yeah,
were you in the lineup of sisters? Oldest,
I'm the
middle, young?
oldest.
You're the oldest. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
were you thinking I'm going to be an actress when I grow up?
oh yeah,
Yeah, I
since
got
I
that
could
from
even
you.
make that.
I got the intrepid Marnie Penning planning her life and determined to make like a bit of a Katharine Hepburn. I don't know why.
Well, thank you. That's an enormous compliment. Yeah, so I was like, I started doing children's theater when I was in like an actual putting on plays on a stage with like costumers and all that when I was 9. And it's a company that does theater for children by children
Oh, I love
from
that.
9 to 14. And so the moment you turn 9, like if you're going to turn 9 in the course of the show, you can be in the play. So I started doing that. In my very first play, Greg Garcia, who's the creator of My Name is Earl, was in it with me, him and his sister. Kathleen McInerney, I don't know if you've ever talked to her on your Scope
Wow.
of Joe, but she was in Alice in Wonderland, which was the first play I saw by this company, um, when I was like 8, and went, that's what I want to do with my life. It's Kathleen McInerney playing Alice in Wonderland. And then I got to work with her mom several times throughout the course of my young career.
So this company, because of the setup, was probably responsible for bringing a lot of dreams to life.
So many. Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls, she was in it at one point.
Wow.
I know there are a lot of famous people who have come through there. But yeah, a lot of kids got their start and found their people by doing shows with this company, and it's always been wonderful.
I love that. So how did it feel the minute you got your first part?
Oh my gosh, like squealing and jumping up and down, and then like this is where I've always where I was meant to be. It's like, and then
Did
anytime
you
I was not in a show, I was like, mm-mm.
see, that's it, because I know that was kind of how I was when I got my first part in children's theater. And I remember going to school the next day. And
Yeah.
I was, this isn't an attractive thing to say, but I was better than all the hoi polloi. I, I think I was like 9. I was an actress. And
That's right.
I'm sorry, but who are you people?
I know. That's right. That's right. Excuse me. I'm coming through.
And the change, little thing, it's weird, but that whole world, the little things, that sense of pride. Remember the first time you're like, oh, we're getting changed backstage, and
Oh,
we changed, the
yes.
boys are in the same area. Oh, we're just cool. We're actors. We're like,
That's right.
but
And then the
that
moms are doing your
world,
makeup. Yeah,
yeah.
totally. I
Oh, and
loved
the
it so much.
magic, the smell of the makeup, and oh,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's
I
such an
still,
intense experience at a young
yeah.
age.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Wow.
became my whole world. And I'm sure yours too. Like all growing up, the first time I didn't work on a weekend, I was like, what is this weirdness? Like I knowing as a narrator that I didn't have to work on weekends was weird to me
Yeah, I
because
still
my
work
whole life.
weekends. I've like
Yeah.
never not, because to me it's just like the
You
weekends
work
were
on
when you
weekends.
did the stuff that you loved.
Right. Right.
So I
It's
always had
where
like
all the
another
magic happens.
job. Yeah. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay. So you're in children's theater. Are you good at school as well? Or are you
I was
popular?
like, um, you know, like popular is weird because I never thought of myself as a popular kid. I was in the plays that we did in elementary school. I was in the plays that we did in junior high, and I was in all the plays in high school. So I didn't really think of myself as a popular kid, but I didn't think of myself as unpopular either. I
Yeah,
was
you
sort
were
of
just
in the
happy.
middle. Yeah, I was happy. I was
Yeah.
happy. I loved getting to do I had a fourth grade teacher who decided that she wanted to teach us Shakespeare. And that's how I got into Shakespeare. We did Julius Caesar at the Folger Theater because I'm in the DC area. The Folger Theater has an elementary school Shakespeare festival every year. And so we went and performed scenes from Julius Caesar in front of all of these people um, at the Folger.
I
And it
love
was
that.
so cool. So, yeah, I grew up knowing and loving Shakespeare.
So at what point did life kick you? I mean, or did it never?
You
Did
mean
you
as
ever have
far
a dark
as,
nights of the soul,
oh, heck yeah.
something you couldn't overcome? So at what point did that happen?
Well,
Because we all love the happy story, but that it always, I think what we all love also is the how we overcame the roadblocks along the way. So what roadblock did we run into
heck
first?
yeah. Well, it's a pretty serious roadblock. So I went through, junior high, high school, went to college and met a guy and ended up in Cincinnati and we co-founded Cincinnati Shakespeare Company
Oh,
and ended up
wow.
yeah. And it's still going. It's still
Oh, and we
going.
co-founded. It's like, no, that's like, that needs like an,
Well, it's leading to the dark night of the
okay.
soul. It's and so like a bunch of friends of mine from college, and then the interns from Ensemble Theater Cincinnati who were there. The two groups merged, and we co-founded this company, which is about to turn 30. By the way, the company is about to
Wow.
turn 30, which is amazing to me. But I ended up getting married and then not being married. The dark night of the soul is that he's remarried to my former intern, and that's the short version of that story.
That's Betty Davis,
Is it?
isn't it? What's a famous
Is that all
uh,
about Eve or
yeah,
something?
all
No,
about Eve, and the assistant wants to take her life, and like, I mean, it's not exactly, but not that it's easy to
yeah,
relate every single thing to a Betty Davis film, but
right. Somewhere in there.
but yeah,
But
okay,
yeah,
that's a massive dark night of the soul.
it was
That's
huge.
yeah.
Yeah.
How
And
did
I
that affect
was,
your career? How do you handle when big personal stuff happens? Do you lose yourself in your work? Does it disrupt your work? Does it make it harder or easier for you?
my career saved me, I think, in that sense, because I was living in New York at the time, and then I just went back and was just like, okay. I mean, I fell apart for a while, and then when I went back to New York, I was like, okay, okay, my life is different now, and I just jumped right in. I had nobody else to worry about at that point, so it was what's best for me. And so I auditioned for everything. And after that, I started doing regional theater all over the place. Um,
Is
I
it
was, you know,
horrible? Is it horrible? You can tell that I've been in this business too long that I'm thinking, ooh, talk about like being able to mine emotions. That's like
oh my
really,
God.
do you know what I mean? That must have
I
taken you to
totally
the
know.
next level.
Oh my
At
gosh.
the time, probably
Yeah.
not what you wanted to
Well,
hear.
no, I mean, yeah, probably at the time not. I mean, it's so long ago now. It's been over 20 years that that
Yeah,
happened. So yeah, no, for it took a really long time for me to even be able to talk about it honestly.
yeah,
Because being in the same profession, you always run into people who know that person and who work with that person and like find out that you did Cincinnati Shakes and they're like, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I do. Next question. And so, um, but I, I landed in just the right place for me. So like, I totally lost myself in my work. I auditioned for anything and everything, and just went all over the place, and was able to get all these experiences that I wouldn't have had I stayed where I was.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and eventually met my husband, and now have an amazing life
So where
and a
did you
great
meet your
kid.
husband? And tell me if it's too personal. I
No,
just
not at
I
all.
just love hearing the where they met their husband stories. I worked for a dating agency in London,
Did
so
you?
humor me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, it's so funny. Like, we met at my high school reunion, but he didn't go to my high school. So, okay, his best friend's wife went to my high school.
Okay.
And I was living in New York at the time, but the high school reunion was here in DC. And so the husband of my friend said, "Hey, dude, I'm at this bar. I don't know anybody. Come and meet me here. You got to save me. Maybe you'll meet a girl." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And so they were like, "Oh, sorry, I don't think there are any single girls here." And they're like, "What about that one?" And so it was me. And I had just gotten out of a 7-year relationship with a very nice guy, but and it just didn't work out. And so we started talking, and then he invited me out to dinner. And for anybody from New York is going to find this like jaw dropping. I went back up to New York after the thing. I was like, well, my friend knows how to get in touch with me. And he's like, okay, great. And so he messaged me and said, hey, I'm going to be up in New York for work. I'd love to take you out to dinner. And I was like, sure. And he's like, great. Meet me in Stamford, which is a 45-minute train ride north of the city. But my friend had started this philosophy of yes, right? Like if you're not doing
Yeah,
anything,
that's gotten me in
right?
a lot of trouble.
So I guess it did for me too. But she was like, if you're not doing anything and it's not going to hurt anyone, say yes. You never know what'll happen. And so I was like, okay, yes. And then like, he said the Stanford thing. I was like, okay, yes. And then he picked me up in Stanford and drove me to Norwalk for dinner, which is another 20 minutes away. And we fell in love in the car ride.
Oh, that's love. Was there music playing?
There was music playing. It was probably NPR, but it was like it was just like it was us in a car in traffic going from Stanford to Norwalk, and talking about all the things that we wanted to do with our lives and how much they were meshing. And we had all these friends in common but had never met each other, and we had both just gotten out of long-term relationships where the other person didn't want what we wanted, and what we wanted was the same thing. And so we went out to this amazing dinner, had this epic first date, And then he went to Spain for 2 weeks. He's a wine and cheese buyer, by the way. I should put that in there.
Oh, good pick.
Yeah. I know,
Good.
I'm so spoiled.
But I have a
Yeah.
theory about car rides before you say the
Yeah.
rest. Because a friend was saying that they hated the drive to we're from the same hometown from LA, and they hated that drive because it was
Yeah.
nothingness. To me, a drive like that it's a bridge between in your life. It's a timeout.
Yeah.
And magical things happen because all rules are off because you're in a bubble.
Yeah. That's
And you
exactly what
guys
it
met
was.
in a bubble. That's
We
so
did.
romantic. It couldn't get more
Yeah.
romantic. Okay,
I
so sorry.
know.
So finish the story. I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. So you said I couldn't get more romantic. So he went to Spain on a wine buying trip for 2 weeks. And he's like, I can't stop thinking about you. If I can get you a ticket, will you come to Madrid for the weekend?
Oh my God.
And so I
And
said,
you had to say yes because of your
yes,
friend.
exactly. And plus, he was vetted, right? He'd been friends with my other friend for 15 years. And their kids call him uncle, like they call him uncle and all this stuff. And so I flew to Madrid for our second date and spent the weekend in Madrid at the Ambassador Hotel and went to the Prado. And
Oh,
it
it's
was
so
amazing.
romantic.
It was
It
a
is. It's
really,
even
really
more
romantic
romantic
thing.
because you guys didn't know each other that well. So you didn't know all the like gross, like stupid things you do.
That
Do you
we
know what
do
I mean?
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
after a
we
while.
met 14 years ago today,
Why are
June
you on
6th.
this call on your
I,
anniversary? I
it's
hate to
not.
bring that.
It's not the anniversary of when we got married. It's the anniversary of when we met. But like, he's still at work. He's at work until 5. But yeah, like, yeah, 14 years ago today.
You
Isn't that
see, it's
crazy?
I think noticing the things like taking a break out in the car and falling in love. Do you know what I mean? Going to a
Yeah,
romantic hotel, celebrating this. How much do we do all that stuff when
yeah,
we do the
yeah.
boring life stuff and the worrying about how many books we have booked? How much do
Right.
we, like you mentioned, like offhand, oh yeah, we started this Shakespeare company in Ohio. Just like, do you know what I mean? That's the headline, the
Yeah,
romance in the car. But we spend all our time going, I mean, how much time have any of us spent, like in the last month, thinking about the wow, amazing thing that happened this month? Or how much time
yeah.
have we spent watching crap on social media about AI coming for our job?
Right. I gotta say that so I was just diagnosed with ADHD in the last few years. And Amy Rubinate had and I have had conversations about this, and she recommended this coaching site. It's called ADHDcoaching.com or something like that. And I was at my wit's end because I could not concentrate on anything to save my life. Um, and so I went on this coaching site and they matched me with this woman who is also a mom who also has ADHD, who also has ADHD kids, and she changed my life.
Wow.
And that going through that process, I swear has changed my outlook on life so much because I I learned how to chunk my time. I learned how to look for things that you were just saying, like how much do we miss? I've missed so much in my life that in the last year, I guess, year or so after having worked with her for so long, I have actually started to not work on weekends, to be with my son as much as I can, to we're fighting a gas pipeline in our neighborhood, and I joined a band, and now we had a show on Saturday,
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
and you were just talking about AI coming for our jobs, and I I don't know if it's part of what the work that I did with this coach that's helping me, but I know for a fact that what we do as far as long form narration is concerned, that there is absolutely no way that without significant person power
Right.
that AI can do what we do.
I agree with
And
you. I agree,
yeah,
but it's not the actual thing. It's the social media energy,
Mm.
surrounding the thing, because, and I'm of two minds, because people like Emily Ellett, and when they fight, and I just like, wow, look at that fire. That's like amazing. But then another friend was sent a message yesterday on social media from a caring person saying, you know that this is going to ruin your job. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You have to be prepared. They're the doomsayers that like say you got to get. But what that to me does is generate fear. And to be honest with you,
Yeah.
how am I going to go in the booth and do a good job? Because right now I'm
Yeah.
working. I
Yeah.
can't. And also, I wonder how much people are conflating the amount of work they're getting right now
Mm.
and immediately saying AI and ignoring the amount of
Right.
people that started recording coming in at COVID that are now, still launching. The industry's changing. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people. What do we need to do to be top of our game, kind of thing? But
Right.
it's
Right.
living in the moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
absolutely living in the moment.
with ADHD, I don't know how. I did a book connecting the dots,
Hmm.
amazing book about midlife ADHD. It was one of the first
Yeah.
books I did. And, but that's all I know about the subject. I don't really know how it presents, but I know a lot of people have it, and they're
Yeah.
not the people you would think. They're successful, but
Yeah.
it feels like they've been successful despite the, not because, like, they've had
Not
to like
because of,
work around other neurotypical.
yeah, divergences. Yeah.
Is that right? I might be wrong.
You know what's interesting is when I found out that was my diagnosis, I was like, oh, my life makes sense now. Because I literally chose a profession where I mask every day. Like I am, 17 different personalities all day long. And I know how to change my personality depending on who I'm talking to. Um, but you find that a lot of ADHD people are super successful as entrepreneurs. And that's what we are, right? We have our own businesses. We are our
Right.
own entrepreneurs. Um, I stink at being on time to like an 8 a.m. Work call for a business that I don't like. Like when I was an administrative assistant, I would like, and I had to be there at 8 a.m. I gotta tell you, and I didn't know that I was ADHD at the time. Everything in my being was like, ugh, fighting me getting to that office by 8 a.m. And like my brain would wander, and I figured out ways around it, but now, as an entrepreneur, um, my ADHD works perfectly with it because there's variety in what I do. Every single day in the booth is different. I have contracted out people for the things that I don't focus on well. So, like when I sit down to do my schedule, my brain goes, bleh. So I have Kim Gilmore, who's my assistant. She
Oh,
does my
and
schedule
thank
for
you,
me.
by the way, Kim, for catching my typo in the video. Mwah!
Yeah, I'm so glad she did too because I didn't see it.
I'm
Um,
normally quite good not doing that, but yeah, thank you
it's
to her.
okay.
But I've got to say, uh,
It's taken me a whole lifetime to know, and this coach to know to set myself to be there 15 minutes early so I'll be on time. To make sure that I say out loud what my grocery list is going to be to Alexa so I don't walk away from the refrigerator and forget in the 4 steps that it takes me to get to the breakfast bar what it was that we're out of. Um I it's making little concessions for yourself to make sure that you can survive in a neurotypical world.
I
Yeah.
think we don't realize. I think it was very brave. It was very, I think it's quite something. And it's the people I admire the most in this world that they question things. Why am I the way I am? I mean, how would you get a diagnosis if you didn't say, why am I doing it's a lifetime worth of being who you are.
Mm-hmm. No,
But
but I
it's,
mean,
but I
and
say it
also there's just,
jokingly, but
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I think we're all different colors and different spectrums. I think we all are to some degree. But I
yeah.
think understanding our own, wow.
It helps so much. Like,
Yeah.
just I didn't. I honestly didn't even question myself until I was given a book, and I think it was by Tantor, called A Radical Guide for Women with ADHD. And as I'm narrating this book, I'm like, well, I do that and I do that and I've always done that, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, and I finally was like, because it comes out so differently in women than, like, you think ADHD and you think of a little boy in a classroom like bouncing off the
Yeah, that's
walls.
what I always thought.
Yeah, and now it's I have what used to be called ADD, and it's different. Like, my brain works super fast, but not on the things that it's supposed to. So,
So how do
so
you focus in recording with that?
oh, that's so when you're interested in something, it becomes hyper focus.
Mm,
And so performing is my home. It's like where, like, just sitting down. I used to have trouble getting in the booth, and now I work with an engineer every day. And because I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to disappoint others, when he's waiting for me in the booth at 10, I am there at 10 or 10:05. But I'm like, I'm gonna pay you starting at 10 o'clock. So I know I'm gonna be in the booth by 10. Um, and my productivity has gone through the roof.
a director, engineer, or just engineer?
Just an engineer. We meet on Zoom and he controls my computer. I give him control of my mouse and he runs my computer while I perform. It's
Wow.
amazing. It's changed
So like
my
as if you were
whole
going
setup.
into a studio. What made you
Mhm.
start to do that? What made you decide to do that?
I had a book that I did through Mosaic for Disney, and that was the first time I had worked in my home booth with an engineer.
Mhm.
And I was able to get like three and a half finished hours done in a day.
Yeah,
And I
that's
was
what
like,
happens when you're in the
"Oh,
studio. It's so fast.
what is this
2 days
magic?"
for a 7-hour book.
It was amazing. And I was like, my eyes were opened up. And then a friend said that another friend of hers was wanting to get into audiobooks and that he had engineering experience from the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. He lived in New York and was an engineer, volunteer engineer at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation.
Wow.
And then he just lost his job and he was wanting to get more into audiobooks. And I was like, wait a minute, you said he's an engineer? And I was like, can we meet and, like, talk this through? And, he gave me a figure. I'm like, I can pay that. And what I pay him, like, he live proofs for me while we go. So on the back end, I have like 10 corrections. The books that I don't do with him, I like have 100 corrections. So it's like I save so much money and I'm so much more productive because I pay him on the front end. So it's helped me so much, especially with
Wow.
ADHD.
That's really interesting.
Mm.
If he wants more work, this audience, they're
Hey,
gonna.
absolutely. Hey, DM me. He's got extra time. So
But if you, all joking aside, if he does, we can put his link in the about section
yeah,
after the call.
absolutely. His name is
Um,
John Daddy. He's an actor. He's wonderful.
okay, sounds good. Sounds that. See, I love this. Okay, now
Yeah.
I do have a question. Um, from Kim. Who was your favorite character that you portrayed on stage?
Oh, Hamlet. No question. I got to play Hamlet.
Wow.
Um, and that's why my website is the Lady Hamlet. My email is the Lady Hamlet. My social medias are the Lady Hamlet. It was transformative. Absolutely transformative, and I loved it. The best compliment I got was that somebody said they saw the sex switch as secondary and that they saw the play in a whole new way.
Oh, see now that's because you can really inhabit another. My professor kissed me, in a Shakespeare. Here, I'll show you how to do it. And he kissed me, and it put me off Shakespeare. I think I was like
Oh my God.
18.
Oh my God. I'm
Gross,
sorry
big
that
old
happened.
beard,
Uh,
slobbery, slimy
oh,
guy,
I'm so sorry that
and it put
happened.
me off Shakespeare forever. And I only ever even remembered it like now.
Oh
Like
my gosh. Wow.
at the time, you don't think,
No. Oh my
we're in
gosh.
theater. That's the part. Here, I'll show you how it's
Ugh.
done.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Bleh. That's
Yeah, but funny, I
awful.
never liked Shakespeare much after that. I do like the language. I love watching it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
never pursued it.
Yeah.
But that's like quite a role. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
life-changing role.
Yeah. I've done 54 productions of 23 of Shakespeare's plays
Wow.
in my
So
career.
what? what about narrating acting now? When did the narrating come in? And do you still do the acting? Are you full-time just only narrating? And how did you become a narrator?
So, Andy Arndt was my college roommate.
Wow.
And so I had done stage work. And when she was starting doing narration, she would like call me and say like, "Hey, is my microphone set up okay? Like, is my blanket for it all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's great." But when I was doing a show in DC. I was living in New York, but doing a show in DC, and I had auditioned for the National Library Service. Um, and they said, "Well, you're living in New York. There's no point in you coming down here for this because it doesn't pay very well. It's very." But my grandmother was blind when she passed, and she used the National Library Service quite a bit. And so I was like, I would read the newspaper to the blind on our public radio station when I was in college, and um, so when I got another show down in DC, and then it was like back to back shows, and I was going to be here for like 6 months, um, I said, "Okay, how about now?" And so they said, "Okay." And so I started recording books for the blind for the Library of Congress. And then when I got pregnant, I was on bed rest for almost 12 weeks.
Wow.
Um, And so I couldn't do any recording. And then once my son was born, I couldn't leave to go in studio at the time because it was only in
How
studio
was that emotionally with
to be on bed rest.
ADHD on bed rest, not able to like occupy yourself or divert your attention, and also having hundreds of millions of hormones surging through your body and like a really scary thing happening in 12 weeks?
I
How is
know.
that?
Okay, thank goodness I didn't know I was ADHD at the time, but thank God for Facebook because I chatted with my friends all day long and it never really, the only time it really seemed like it was a really long time laying on my left side on my couch was when my hip would start to hurt.
Hmm.
And then I had what I called my celebrity couch, and people would come over and spend time with me on my couch while I was, pregnant. And then I would put on Facebook like who came to visit me that day, and that was my celebrity couch. And then once my son was born, they would come back and visit. But I painted a couple paintings. I watched Doctor Who from the beginning, like the first Doctor and all the black and white stuff.
Oh,
Um, I
did you
watched
really
the
understand? I lost the plot. It might be because it was on right when I was having a glass of wine, but like towards the last few series, I literally couldn't understand what was happening at all.
I haven't gotten to the end. I actually haven't even gotten to the reboot. I'm still in like the early Doctors,
Yeah,
but I
the
haven't
early ones
had a chance.
I started thinking maybe I'm getting too old or something, or I'm losing my mind. I might need to try it again while I'm sober, but I
Well, my
couldn't
friend
understand.
explained it. My friend explained it to me that it was like really meant for like teenage boys at the time when it first came out. Like that was their target audience.
Yeah,
And so that makes a lot more sense watching it now. But yeah, it's just
I might
I
give it
enjoyed
a
it at the
try.
time. Yeah.
I'm going to try again. I admire that. That was quite productive for.
What else was I going to do? I couldn't leave the couch. That and watching the Olympics. Like I watched the entirety of the Olympics in 2012. That was the year my son was born.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I can't.
Between dozing and being on Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah.
recording,
Yeah.
narrating.
Yeah.
I don't want you to say so much that like you give away the entire course, but this penning
Oh yeah.
method thing,
Yes, yes,
tell me
yes.
about it. I found it fascinating. You went to an audition and you figured something out. Tell me about the penning method.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been coaching actors for auditions for 29 years. I started back when I was at Cincinnati Shakes, helping kids get into college. That was my stuff that I would do. Parents would come to me because they knew I was part of the theater. And when I was in New York, like because I'd done Shakespeare, I had learned how to mark my text with Shakespearean cadence and all that stuff, like underlining the iams and everything. and marking where the ends of sentences were, all this stuff. But when I was in New York, and the specific story you're asking about is, I went to this audition, and it was, I did my monologue, and they're like, "Oh, great. Here, look this over, and we'll see you in 5 minutes." And I was like, this was this long and like full of imagery and repetition at the end of every sentence. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I started marking it with Shakespearean notation, and then like other things that made sense to me at the time. And when I went back in there, I had a completely unique presentation. It was text-based. It made sense to me. It made sense to the director, and it um, showed them something that they hadn't really thought of before, and I got the job.
And also that you
And
can digest a script in 5 minutes.
in five
And
minutes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started using this notation with all my students. And so a few years ago, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll write a book, and it'll be like, overlays with the different notations, and you can see how they layer on top of one another. And then I was like, and then the internet and courses started coming out, and I was like, this is really something that I know that's helpful to everybody I teach it to, and
Yeah.
I can't, take everybody in because there aren't enough hours in the day. So I was like, why don't I put this in an easily digestible format and teach it to everybody, because everyone who's learned it has said it's a game changer. So I called it the penning method for the panicked actor.
So,
Because
but I have a
yeah,
question about it
yeah,
though.
yeah.
So you're marking up the script heavily, right? I've
Mhm.
tried both ways, but what
Yeah.
I found was when I mark up the script too much, I lose the connection when I go into the booth.
Okay. So I do this for auditions, and I use it. Um, Gail Shallon, do you know Gail? She,
Mhm.
when I taught it to her, she said it's kind of like creating a playground. And it's like, there are the monkey bars, and there are the handholds, and here are the swings. And if it's invisible, and especially with ADHD, or if your adrenaline like creates this panic in you, and you go in and you just forget everything you were going to do, because adrenaline will do that to you
Okay.
sometimes. When you make the handholds and the monkey bars and everything on a specific way, it becomes the background. And so there's your playground. And when you go in, you don't have to remember what you wanted to do because it's there. And you can just let go and play on the playground that you've set up. So
Hmm.
so marking it too heavily, I totally agree with you. But when there's specific markings for a purpose, you can go, okay, this is the way I want to mark up my phrases. This is the important verb that I want to make sure that I hit. This is the word that I really want to chew.
Okay.
Um, and I find it really useful for either complex passages when you're working with a director, auditions, because that way you can just concentrate on becoming the character and not remembering what you want to do with your phrasing. Or in a situation where you've got 5 minutes to look at something, and what you want to do when you go back in is just lose yourself in the character. You don't have to remember what you wanted to do. You can just go play. And that's what I
Okay.
love about it.
That makes sense. Okay. So this brings me to another question.
Yeah.
You might not be able to answer it, but I'm trying to unpack it in my brain. Um, you listen to narration because you try to find out, and I started noticing what felt like a trend. And
Okay.
you want to be on top of the different sounds because every industry changes and everything changes, but you have to hold on to your own style and tone as well. I find
Right.
that hard because I've always been like a chameleon, like I'll become whatever anybody in the room wants me to be,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Reality, what's reality?
Right. Right.
I'll
Exactly.
change my name if I have to, whatever. So, so when I hear a different, it feels like a different feel of narration and things that are coming out now. And then you think you don't want to change. It's as PJ says, you want to be honest. As long as you're honest, that's
Right.
it, which is right. But the two things that I'm wondering, and I'm just really interested in your opinion. I value your opinion because of your experience, and also because, oh my God, that clip of your acting was like next level. I can't even remember what it
Thank
was about.
you.
I just remember I was blown away. I know I responded on Facebook to it. It was like a reel or something. But
Yeah, thanks.
so two things I've noticed is a lot of narration I hear now, they hit the vowels really hard.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know if it's a generational thing, if it's like an
Huh.
age thing, like people are speaking that way now, but I've noticed they hit the vowels. There isn't a vocal fry, but there's like a thing. They emphasize things. Like almost to me, it sounds like character. I'm not putting it down. I'm trying to understand if
Right.
it's something you can utilize in different genres. And then the other thing I'm noticing is energy. I'm listening to a guy narrating that I just think is a cheeky thing. You know how you listen to someone, you think, wow. And I've like emailed him, one cup of Joe. And now I'm like all starstruck because
Aw.
he's got that, he's got this like energy.
Yeah.
Like he's such a nice guy. I just want to hug him. I'm listening to him narrate. I'm like, he's so, I'm there with him because the
Yeah.
energy, and also energy is another thing that I'm
Yeah. And
fascinated by, like how you
yeah.
feel when you go in the booth, and if that comes through in your read, like as a human being,
Yeah.
who you bring into the booth. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by that because I think
Yeah.
when you were a narrator, when you listen to your early stuff,
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
excited and in love.
Yeah.
There might be editing problems or not knowing
Yeah.
things, but remember that energy?
Oh, for sure. And also like trying to get it right. Like trying to get like you were saying, the style right, trying to get the narration
Yeah,
right as opposed to being the character. Um and it's I found that it's much more like being on stage or being in film than anything else, because you have to immerse yourself as that person.
yeah,
Otherwise they're going to hear it. You're in their head, right?
yeah,
You're literally in their head if they've got earbuds in.
yeah. The
So
connection. But I think
yeah.
even if you tap into that, I was sick for a while, and I
Oh, sure.
wonder if that, that energy, the
Yeah,
spark
if
you
it comes
have
across. Yeah.
when life gets you down, I wonder if subconsciously, Lauren says, have you listened to Inside Voice by Lake Bell, narrated by the author?
No, but I
I'm,
love Lake Bell.
I'm going to so check it out.
Yeah, I love her. She's the one that did In a World, about
Oh,
the
yeah,
daughter
yeah.
of the yeah, yeah.
Okay, I saw
She's
that.
so good. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah, beating the words to death, Kim says. I'm fascinated by this stuff. Like I realized in these calls, I'm getting people like you that I admire that are like, and like
Thank
that
you.
guy that I kind of am stalking, poor guy. He's like, she's listening to my book, but she's a little bit weird because you're
That's
the
awesome. I want to know who it is now. You have to tell me afterwards.
it's I can't remember his name. It's he's got like a three Mark Rice Oxley or something, and it's a time
Ooh.
travel book.
Ooh, I'll have to check
It's a
that out.
time travel book, and I listened to one of them, and I like it was like the time I read listened to the Johnny Heller time travel book. Like
Nice.
seriously, I didn't sleep for a week because
Oh,
Johnny's
really?
another one that does that. He
Yeah.
brings his character
Yeah.
to it. Mark
Yeah.
Rice Oxley or something.
Mark Rice Oxley. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I'm listening to book two now. I'm like addicted to it. He's English.
Nice. Nice.
And yeah, sorry, this is the Marnie Penning call, and I'm going on.
Well, while you look it up, I'll tell you, I'm listening to Six Crimson Cranes right now. Emily Wu Zeller on that. Oh my gosh, so good. She's so good. Um,
Mark Rice Oxley,
Mark Rice
Oxley.
Oxley.
Yeah, and the first book was Need a Little Time, and it was so good for
Oh,
time travel
wow.
because time travel can be flat. I've never heard Emily Wu Zeller. I'm going to check her out because the name
Six
keeps
Crimson
coming up.
Cranes. You should definitely listen to Six Crimson Cranes. It's a story about a princess and her six brothers, and they are cursed, and it's so good. I'm just finishing it. But somebody on TikTok said there were like four audiobooks that they couldn't get out of their heads. And that was one of them. And I was like, well, let me look what's on my library.
Yeah.
And Six Crimson Cranes, like every single one of her characters is so distinct. You know who's talking without the speech tags.
I'll check it out.
Like,
It's not the
oh,
kind
it's
that I
so
would ever
good.
like get because it just the genre, but I
Right.
definitely for the narration have been meaning
Oh,
to listen to something by her. So
yeah.
what about you and your journey as a narrator? Is there
Yeah.
anything that has changed from when you
Yeah.
began to now?
Yeah.
Like lessons that you realized, oh wow, I could tweak this and it makes it. What would you say the biggest lesson you've learned doing it?
Heck yeah. I mean, the first lesson that I learned right out of the box from Andy, actually, was that everybody makes mistakes. And it's totally normal and natural to make mistakes. And when you make a mistake, don't apologize, just go start again. Because
Yeah.
everybody, like, no one does a 9-hour book without stopping and going back a bazillion times. So that is huge. And if I had just, taken baby narrator Marni and said, you're gonna mess up, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if you mess up. You will get too much spit in your mouth. You will trip on your tongue. You are going to, stutter sometimes. Just go back and do it again. That was huge.
Yeah.
And then working with Paul L. and Ruben, I've done like 3 or 4 sessions with him now. And like the idea of like just turning your mind's eye into the situation of the book and being that character as opposed to having to put on what that character is doing. Um, that's huge. I don't know if you can see this, but this is my little Tinkerbell. Can you see Tinkerbell there?
Oh, I love that. Oh,
Um, so Paul always says, like, especially in third person, you're Tinkerbell, right? You're like in front of the person's eyes, seeing what they see. Then you go in their head and you see what they see through their eyes. And then you turn around and you can see what they're seeing. You can see that person. So I've got Tinkerbell up there to remind me just to be Tinkerbell.
I
And
love
you don't have to
that.
push so much. Like that's the hugest part for me.
Like Morgan Freeman's voice. I always imagine Morgan Freeman's voice narrating my life.
Oh, that's awesome. And then
I,
Daniela turned on her Zoom. I
I
love
love
that.
that voice.
Oh my gosh, that's genius. That's another huge thing that I've learned is that, you know, to get myself in the booth, I need to have that person there waiting for me. On days that I don't have him, like I procrastinate. I'm like, the professional procrastinator. Like I will do everything else because it feels so indulgent to get in the booth and do what I love to do. It feels
Yeah.
like I'm doing something like when I should be taking care of my family or I should be doing my dishes or I should be doing my laundry. Like, no, no, no. This is my job. This is good for me to get in here and lose myself in something I love so much.
Well, I mean, you paying the guy, I think, because I just went for my first in a long time session with a personal trainer.
Oh yeah.
And I work well with personal trainers. But the reason I think I've realized is because I need to go somewhere and turn my worries off. Because
Yes.
you're doing it wrong, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to die, you've screwed up. I need someone else. They're the professional. I'm just going to come do my best and
Right.
trust sometimes letting someone be there you can trust. So you don't have to
Yes.
just trust yourself
Yeah, you
is
have somebody to bounce it off of.
yeah. And it's everything. It can make all
Yeah.
the difference. Okay, so now we're talking Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
I've got a final question for you, but first I have another question.
Yeah.
If I could wave my magic wand
Yes.
and give you your heart's desire right now, what would it be? Something just
Oh,
magically fixed or appear or changed, what would it be?
oh man. I would love to be able to retire to the Maldives with my husband and son and never have to worry about money ever again and just sit on a beach all day and listen to books in nature.
Would you still narrate sometimes?
Probably.
Yeah.
I would miss it too much.
Because like you're talking about the girl that's been like doing theater on the weekend since she was 8. I
I
can't
know.
see you lasting long on the beach.
No, well, not, I think I would have a studio. I think I would
Yeah.
have a studio there and I'd be like, y'all go fishing. I'm going to record a little bit and then I'll see you on the beach later.
Right, right. That there I can see. Kim says, I
Totally.
struggle to feel like I need to deserve to spend time in the booth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. And you're depriving the world of your gift if you don't. So yeah, it feels so good to be in here and telling stories. I think that's what it is. It's like we feel like if we're enjoying something, then it's not work.
I know,
And
I
that's,
know.
it's we are just so lucky to get to play for a living.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can feel guilty about that. But
Well, see, I don't know. I kind of I have to say I don't because I
really?
spent so many years doing jobs I hated.
Oh, well,
And
that's, yeah, there is that
now
for
it's
sure.
like it feels right. And it also feels like I'm doing something right. Like
Yes.
I'm
This is
meant to be doing
home.
it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I don't
100%.
think I'm lucky because I think everyone should be doing something they love. And I think they all could. And I think all they have to do is realize it. So to me, it's not this like I'm lucky. I think
Yeah.
everyone is lucky once they're brave enough to figure out what they want and go for it. I know, and I
Yeah.
know that's a privileged position. I do know that everyone can't do that. And I was a person not even with privileges that didn't think they could do that for years. I know it. I know everyone can't do it, but if we waved a magic wand,
Yeah.
everyone would be able to do it. So,
Yeah.
Marnie,
Yes.
for the people watching this video in the next 60, 70 years, if you could leave them with one thought, words of wisdom, a funny joke, something that would stay with them, what one thing would you want them to take away from this call?
Oh, and I knew you were going to ask that question. Um,
Everyone
I
knows it, and yet
I
everyone still
know. I know.
turns
I was like
pale the minute I ask.
trying to Ooh. Um, I think what I said, that everyone messes up and it's okay.
Yeah,
Like I, and even those people who look like they're not panicking on the inside, it's like the Michael Caine thing where, acting is like being a duck, calm on the outside and paddling like hell underneath. Um, and it feels like when you're getting started in this business that everybody's got it figured out, but we don't. We're all doing the best we can with the information we have at the time. And then you learn something new and you incorporate it, and then you learn something new and that doesn't work. So I'm going to use something else. But just know that nobody has it figured out. Not 100%. And that messing up is part of it. So don't don't feel like you have to apologize when you stutter or you trip up or you've said something 14 times and it still hasn't come out right. Laugh at it. Laugh at it and keep going.
I love that. I love the thought of laughing at it. So, okay, so in the about section, guys, if you're watching this video, Marnie's editor, except too many people can't contact him because then Marnie will get annoyed.
I've got him from 10 to 2
She's
Monday through
got first
Friday, just so
dibs.
you know.
He's going to be like, wait, why are all these people suddenly reaching me? Second thing, penning method. I'm very curious about that. I'll put the link of that for that in the about section as well, and Marnie's website to contact her. And this has been wonderful. This was
Thank
the
you so
call
much for
we
having
needed.
me.
And I
I
love the
really
love
enjoyed it.
story. You need to write that. You need to have Andy narrate that. You and Andy write and
Mm.
narrate the one with you and the husband falling madly in love in the car. It's so romantic.
Thank
It
you.
is.
Definitely have to
Your
do that.
husband needs to be in a romance novel.
He's already in my romance.
So thank you so much for a lovely call, and thank you to the studio audience. You guys are fabulous as always. So
Thank you
thanks,
all so much for being here. Bye.
Marni. Bye.